Hey there, everyone. I am Ashley Billington, and this is the Campfire. Today, we are deep diving into District 9 5A Division 2. A lot has changed after realignment, and here are the teams who will be competing in that district. Dayton, Fort Bend Marshall, Fort Bend Willow Ridge, Galena Park, Nederland, Port Neches Groves, Santa Fe, and Texas City. There is some new district foes for some of these teams, and that should make for some good football. Let's analyze those teams in our film session. Fort Bend Marshall will look once again to be the cream of the crop in district play. However, this year they should see some better competition along the way. The Buffs went undefeated through the regular season only to lose at home in the first round of the playoffs. Jacoby Banks is back at quarterback, and he was the district overall MVP last season. Marshall has no shortage of athletes, so expect them to hoist the district title this year. Texas City moves over to this district as they had quite a year in 2021. They went 10-2 overall and were 6-1 in district play. The Stingerees bring back some offensive firepower that should help them in their playoff quest. A big story at Fort Bend Willow Ridge was the hiring of alum Kendron Pinson Sr. The former Hightower assistant coach will bring with him his son, Kendron Pinson Jr., which should liven up the offense. Pinson Jr. will be a junior this year, but as a sophomore, he was named first team all-district selection. Port Neches Grove joins this district as well. They are a perennial power and were in the playoffs last year. Galena Park went 8-3 last year, but will find the competition to be a little stiffer in this district. Jose Balderas will lead the Yellow Jacket running attack. Dayton, Nederland, and Santa Fe should find it difficult to make playoff runs, but could be competitive in the middle of the pack. See the Fort Bend Marshall Buffs as the favorite in this district, but there are certainly teams that will be competing for that title. Let's dig even deeper into 9-5A Division 2 with Houston Chronicle reporter John Poorman and producer Ward Fasolt in our district breakdown.
District breakdown time. We're talking District 9 5A Division 2 with Houston Chronicle reporter John Poorman. John, let's talk about this district. Obviously, the name Fort Bend Marshall sticks out, but what else do you see in this district?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right off the top, you see Marshall in there, and I think that it's going to be a really positive thing for this program who, in recent years has made some really deep playoff runs and done a lot of great things, and they always have a ton of great athletes, Division I type football players down there. And, I think it's going to be good because they're going to get a lot more competition during the regular season. You saw it last year, losing to Barbers Hill in the first round. That was the first competitive game they were in really all season. And so I think being in a little bit of a tougher district is going to allow them to, really test themselves during district play, really be able to find out, come to shove, in tough games and clutch situations with the guys that they're going to be able to depend on. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You kind of look down the list of this district. You see Willow Ridge, who we'll dive into here in a little bit. But they are coming off a strong season, and they're looking to keep going with that. And Texas City coming over, they were in the district and challenged Crosby right at the top of that district that they were in last year. So yeah, I mean, there's, this is going to be a competitive district, I think, especially there at the top with the, top 4 or 5 teams probably.
Excellent. All right. Well, next week we're going to talk about 10 5A Division 2, and just like that, we'll be done with 5A because, as we both know, Houston is made up of mostly 6A teams, and that's where we're going to put most of our focus on the next couple of weeks. But I appreciate you joining us, John, and we'll talk to you next week.
The guys have a lot to say on this district, and you can catch the entire district breakdown this Wednesday on our social media platforms. We've heard about the teams. Now let's take a look at some of the athletes to watch out for and our players on the rise. Who is probably the best athlete in the district? Well, That would be Jacoby Banks of Fort Bend Marshall. For the Buffs, you'll catch him behind center. Banks threw for 1,363 yards to go along with 20 touchdowns and only 4 picks. However, at the collegiate level, he'll most likely be playing wide receiver. Last year as a junior, Banks was the overall MVP in the district. Jacoby is verbally committed to the University of Houston. He's going into his junior year, but Texas City's Caleb Bell has already proven he's a load to deal with in the ground game. As a sophomore, Bell rushed for 1,100 yards and 19 touchdowns. He's a 200-pound stocky back who will need more than an arm tackle to bring him down. Another big-time receiver in this district is Marquez Hayes from Fort Bend Willow Ridge. Hayes, a junior, was first-team all-district selection as a wide receiver and a second-team selection as a safety. That's some serious double duty right there. Hayes is nicknamed Iron Man because of how he stays on the field most of the game. He has 19 receptions and 5 touchdowns as a receiver and picked off 7 passes in the defensive backfield. On the defensive line, there's trouble brewing at Marshall as Zachary Chapman will require a lot of attention. As a junior, Chapman tallied 35 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble. And remember, the Buffs starters hardly ever played an entire game. He should be on the field more this year and has received offers from TCU, Mississippi State, and Purdue, among others. Great athletes in this district, but it takes some great coaches to get the best out of them. Fort Bend Marshall head coach James Williams is one of the best coaches in the Houston area. And our Ward Fasold talks to him about his Buffs in our Media Day segment.
All right, it's Media Day. We are in our first 5A Division II district. That's 9 5A Division II, and I'm joined with James Williams from Fort Bend Marshall. Coach, you move away from the HISD teams, but you got some real team squads in here this year with Texas City coming through and PNG as well. Some of the other ones. Talk about this district and what challenges you may have.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Always honored to come on and talk about our team and talk about our district this year. And what a challenge! I mean, it's gonna be a fight every week. I'm excited for it. I believe this is probably the top district in our region. With, like you said, Texas City and PNG, Netherlands in there, Dayton. I mean, it's some really high quality teams in here where, in the past years, we were in with HISD where, it wasn't as much competition week in and week out. That's not going to be the case this year. We
want to talk a little bit about Jacoby because last year you played him at quarterback. You probably will play him again there or wherever you play him. But he can, I asked that question because he can play anywhere and be just about as dangerous at any position he is. He's being recruited as a receiver, but you may use him as quarterback, receiver. You can, having those kind of options with a player like that, how much does that open up your playbook and your offensive line?
It definitely does. That young man can play, practically any skill position, on offense and can play on defense as well. He's a very gifted athlete, and the most impressive thing about that young man is how much of a competitor he is. I mean, he wants to win every single rep, whether it's practice, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's in the game. And he's a very, very competitive young man, and our kids feed off of that. He's definitely one of our team leaders, and so having that versatility with him, being able to play in multiple locations, definitely makes it more difficult, hopefully, for the defense. It's something for them to prepare for. And even on special teams, heck, we can put him back at returner, kickoff returner, and punt returner. So we're blessed to have that young man, and again, he works so hard. He wants it so bad. That's what makes him more impressive about that young man.
Can't wait to see you guys play, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, and we look forward to spring. We start spring, like you said, next week, and we're going to get after it and look forward and get ready for this tough district.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to be releasing this interview with Coach Williams on our social media platforms this Friday. That's going to do it for this week's show. Be sure to join us next week as we close out our 5A coverage with 10 5A Division II. You can keep up with everything on the high school football scene on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube accounts. Until next time, I am Ashley Bullington, and thank you for watching the Campfire.